Well, government and international leaders, including President Cyril Ramaphosa, are in Paris for a climate summit. The two-day summit hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron is aimed at easing the debt burdens of low-income countries whilst freeing up more funds for climate financing. Ramaphosa has outlined South Africa's energy challenges. So perhaps for this and more, we're going to be joined by correspondent Ross Cullen, who is in Paris. Ross, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here. Perhaps you could walk us through what has been covered today and what we can expect from the bilateral talks between France and South Africa.
Yeah, good afternoon. I might just start with that. We are expecting Cyril Ramaphosa and Emmanuel Macron to hold those one-on-one talks very shortly as well at the Elysee Palace. And this comes after President Ramaphosa already spoke at a round table about green growth. I'll just run through some points that the president made. He was joined on stage by Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Egyptian president, Denis Sassou Nguesso, the president of the Republic of Congo, also Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Union. President Ramaphosa said that when you talk about green growth, when you talk about supporting developing countries and designing new financial support systems for developing countries, you have to take into account the particular circumstances of each nation. He said, in South Africa, we are dealing with poverty. We are dealing with unemployment. We have a history of racial division. And so when you are designing broader financial architecture to support emerging economies, you have to bear in mind the specific circumstances of each country. He said that the transition must be just. We're talking about this energy transition, the energy problems. He also spoke about in South Africa at the moment, the energy challenges to support the population. When it comes to that transition, it must be fair. It must not be an unequal transition. And finally, he also mentioned flexibility. He says this has to be a flexible journey. There cannot be restrictions, for example, saying South Africa has to stop its fossil fuel use tomorrow. There has to be capacity built in to allow countries to wean themselves off fossil fuels in a carefully calibrated way that does not impact the population negatively, that has that positive impact as South Africa moves towards renewable energy. He said that 90% of our energy is still generated by fossil fuels. We want to work to wean ourselves off that, but it has to be a flexible journey, and we have to be realistic that quite a lot of our energy makeup in South Africa is still going to be generated by fossil fuels in the coming years.
Ross, just very quickly, what else can we expect for the rest of the program as it unfolds?
Yeah, so Cyril Ramaphosa has had his main roundtable. Now it's Emmanuel Macron, the bilateral with him. He has other meetings this afternoon, for example, with his fellow BRICS leader, Lula, President Lula of Brazil. And I'm sure the idea of the summit in August will take place during that conversation, because these are the only two men in terms of the actual leaders who are here physically present. China have sent their premier Li Qiang, but not the President Xi Jinping. And the Indian Prime Minister is in Washington. And of course, Russian President Vladimir Putin is not here. So I'm sure that in his bilateral with President Lula of Brazil, the BRICS summit will be discussed by President Ramaphosa. And then this evening, there is a dinner for all the heads of states, which the South African president will attend.
Ross, thank you for that update.